Hey, welcome back to Comics Characters Chronology, or perhaps this is the first episode you're seeing. What we do on this channel is follow characters throughout their chronological appearances in comics, movies, TV shows, wherever, wherever I can figure out that they've been. And today we're gonna dive into Justice League. Now this is a collection of characters. It's a team, obviously, but we're gonna look at it from that perspective. Typically, we focus on a character, looking at their growth, their changes, anything that stands out about their stories in each issue. And here we're gonna do that, but with a team. So I won't get into a whole lot of detail with each of the characters. The idea here is that, eventually, however many years from now at this point, that I catch up with the Justice League with, say, a character like Batman, right? Then we'll go into a little more detail about him specifically in these issues, although, hint, not much in this one. But for now, we're just going to look at it from a team perspective, see how the characters interact, work with each other as the team develops. Obviously, there'll be hints as to who the leaders of the teams are. There'll be elections for team leaders. There'll be new members added. That doesn't even, I think, really take that long to get to that point. So, all right, so we're going to start here with Brave and the Bold number 28. This is where they begin. And real quick, I'd like to start with some quick notes on the cover. Okay, so one thing that jumps out is Superman and Batman, two of DC's most popular superhero characters who are on the team, aren't on the cover. That's a little odd. In today's comics market, where it seems like you want to throw them on every cover you possibly can in order to try and sell a comic book, even if they don't appear much in the issue. Here they appear in the issue, although very limited, but aren't on the cover, which is just something to note, I guess. A different time, for sure. And then the next thing I want to point out is this is a truly bizarre image. Yes, the Silver Age had a lot of weird stuff, but watching 5 extremely powerful superheroes taking on a giant starfish, that's strange. All right, and before we get to a quick summary of the story, let's take a quick look at who is credited on this issue. All right, cover pencils by Mike Sekowsky. The cover inks by Murphy Anderson. We don't know who the colorist was for the cover, and Ira Schnapp does the letters. That's notable in particular because he is the one who designed that sort of iconic Justice League of America logo that you see up top there. And I personally love that logo. I think it's great. All right, and inside the issue, we have Gardner Fox doing the script, and Mike Sekowsky on the pencils, inks Bernard Sachs, and letters by Gasper Saladino. All right, quick summary of the story here. Aquaman learns of a giant starfish that has come from outer space, and it has created 3 deputy giant starfish. So the Justice League is called in. They split up into teams to go after those deputy starfishes. Starfishes? I guess fishes is plural. Just sounds weird. Anyways, they managed to defeat those 3 deputy starfish, but not before they managed to transfer to the original Starro the power of a nuclear weapon, knowledge from this Hall of Science, and the ability to mind control humans. So Starro now has all 3 of those abilities. The Justice League, though, is able to defeat Starro with the help of some calcium oxide lime powder, which they learn is basically his weakness. Apparently that's true of starfish, whether from out of space or undersea. And they learn that because of one Snapper Carr, a boy in the town that the Flash manages to save from being mind controlled, who had not been mind controlled because he had been out doing yard work and apparently had been covered in lime that was used on the lawn. I don't know much about lawn care. And as a result of his help, Snapper Carr, much to the chagrin of us all, was made an honorary member of the Justice League team. All right, not a lot here as far as story notes, except again the weirdness of Batman and Superman being involved. We do learn that Superman gets his signal from the JLA signal that is sent out. I don't know if he's wearing a belt or what, that wasn't made clear. Aquaman's is in his belt, we know that. But he's in outer space at the time, destroying meteors, and he can't let a single one slip through to Earth, otherwise it means disaster for Earth. So he's left out. Batman is busy chasing down two of his arch enemies, and we are not given any more detail on who those arch enemies were. Apparently it was too much to say the Joker and Penguin. I don't know why that would have been hard to do, but okay. And again, I do find it a little bit notable that they're not in the issue. It does seem strange when you're wanting this new team idea to latch on to really not have your two biggest characters involved. But, you know, perhaps it was they felt like maybe they would overpower the issue. And this is possible as well, I haven't really looked into it much. Maybe one of the things I'd like to do down the road with this is look at some interviews from original creators and all that kind of stuff to really, add some supplemental episodes with more detail. But it could be that they were looking at the idea of the Justice League team as being promotional for these maybe lesser known characters. So, just a thought. Alright, some quick notes on the character, or in this case, team. You don't really get a sense that this is a team until the end of the book, because they split off into either on their own or pairs to do the fighting, and so that kind of makes it feel not so team-ish. I mean, they do take on the big Starro at the end as a team, but the format is strange, especially for someone more familiar with modern comics. I think the reason for it probably stems from the fact that Gardner Fox, the writer on this, was also the writer of the old JSA stories. In fact, I think he may have written every single issue of All-Star Comics that they were on as a team. At least he wrote the framing story, because that was one of the weird things. They would sort of break up and into their own little missions in the All-Star Comics book. And that was a chance, I guess, to highlight the characters, but it was kind of like they had their own mini story inside of the bigger story, and they didn't really come together and function much as a JSA team. That was not really the format of that book. And in fact, the art in those individual stories was often done by the same people who did the art back in their own books, and their own books weren't necessarily self-titled. They were, inside of All American Comics or Adventure Comics or things like that. And lastly, I know it's kind of cliche to hate on Snapper Carr, but it's deserved. I mean, just look at how he chooses to end this issue. All right, a couple other final notes here real quick. I love the aesthetics of this book. They have this, as they describe it, modern headquarters for the Justice League. I personally love the look of it. I love comics that have this sort of clean, modern look to them. I find that always to be, pleasant, I guess, to read along with. And I really dig the chapter headings where the characters break off into, either solo or duo missions. Just the way those headings are done with the stylized logos-ish, not really logos, but I guess stylized names for each of the individual characters. Reading that kind of stuff, it just makes me happy. I don't know. I think it's one of the reasons I love old comics, is just getting that different design aesthetic from those eras. And real quick, I lastly want to mention Mike Sekowsky, the artist here. I think he's underrated. He definitely isn't one of the greats of his era, and that's, I understand why he's not, held up in that kind of regard, and nor should he be, but especially at a time when no one was doing this kind of thing, for him to bring together a team like this and be able to draw all of these characters in ways that frankly all look quite good, and the action looks good. None of the characters look too different from what you might expect compared to their other books, I think that deserves a fair bit of credit. I think later artists are more experienced with that kind of thing, but he's the first one really doing this kind of thing, bringing together these characters that he wouldn't necessarily do himself on a regular basis, that someone else was doing on a regular basis. So yeah, not the greatest artist in the world, but certainly these books could have been a lot worse if he wasn't on it. So I think Sapkowski does deserve a fair bit of credit. All right, and we'll get back to the Justice League probably in about 5 episodes, because in a perfect world, I'd love to put a new episode out every business day of the week. But we'll see if we can build up to that point. But I'd like to get us on that schedule at least, hopeful for the future. But next time, though, we will move to what would eventually, I guess, be our Thursday character. And we're going to go back across the street over to Marvel, and we're going to do a team again. But it's a team that's so closely knit, it's a character, almost, one might say a family. The Fantastic Four. We're going to look at their first appearance in Fantastic Four #1. So look forward to seeing you then.